I play Berber the Moor, and he is one of the band of men. He's the sort of close, like spirit advisor, sort of rock for the main character Wilken Brattle, who is the warrior, very conflicted warrior character, and I'm also have a very interesting history in that I'm a sort of devout Muslim in a very Catholic Wales of 14th century um, um, Wales, and I'm actually it's the 15th century, isn't it? The 1400s, yeah. So I'm he's very he has his own sort of history and a journey. He's come from somewhere very different to the life he lives here. He can read, which suggests that he's sort of noble birth as well, and has many secrets. So it's been very interesting to sort of tell the story of a Berber, sort of an incredible tribe, that goes back so far in history. We can find Berbers during sort of Roman times. Hannibal is a perfect example of some of the early Berbers, and so. From Hannibal to Colonel Gaddafi, which is quite a journey. Well, there's some of the battle scenes that we've shot, particularly the one in the pilot, took about 2 or 3 days to choreograph, and then about a week to shoot, a week and a half to shoot. So it's quite sort of complicated because there's just we don't have that sense anymore. Warfare is kind of so remote nowadays. This is hand on hand combat, and lots of interesting weapons that are used in medieval warfare, like there's broadswords, obviously. There's scimitars, which is what the Moors used. There's sort of lots of daggers, but then you've got things like balls on chains and with spikes, and it was quite creative actually, and a lot of it the weaponry comes from I mean, you probably know about the brutality of this sort of crime and punishment, and the use of torture, which is central to our story. you know so I imagine a lot of the tools of torture inspired warfare and vice versa because I mean some of the contraptions that are used for torture and for punishing people who have committed sort of minor offences are quite shocking. So I think probably that's where most of the sort of bloodiness and the sort of medieval times having a bad rep as being a particularly bloody time is probably to do more with the torture instruments that were invented by who. I love the scimitar. I think it's because it's quite an ingenious sort of piece of technology for the time, really, because on one side it's sharp and on the other side it's blunt. So in that sense, you can use your body in such a way, you can keep it quite close to your body, and it's quite sort of beautiful to watch the sort of experts kind of use it. But it means that you can use your other arm or hand, or to give it extra sort of the actual cutting side, the blade, more it can be more effective. And more surprising, if you're using a broadsword, which is quite sort of aggressive and random. This is very specific in its sort of deadliness, and so so I would say the scimitar is definitely, which is Berber's weapon of choice. They're both. I mean, you would never know particularly. They're both very professional, and obviously have been working together for a long time. So I think they have quite a good sort of working relationship. And you know, I'm not always aware that they're bringing sort of home life to set with them. So that's quite interesting. But what's quite interesting as well is that they're actually working quite closely side by side in terms of the fact that they're playing a sort of a couple in the piece. So although I often wonder what it must be like for them really to do that. But they must have such a tight understanding of each other to be able to do that. I can't imagine working with my wife. So I admire them for that really. And you know, Kurt sort of it must be quite a massive workload because he's writing episodes whilst also coming in for costume fittings, and yeah, I don't envy him in any way really. But yeah, no, I think they handle it very well. I can't really answer that. The honest answer is possibly. There's definitely a lot more to explore with Sembeni in terms of his backstory and his own sort of dark secrets. And it's horror. People come back. People die and are resurrected. So that would I think we have to leave that one open. Well, Sembeni is Sir Malcolm's man and his confidant. They've been together and for a long time. He was with Sir Malcolm when his son died in Africa, which is where they met. And Sir Malcolm is a renowned, being a sort of a very high status, very respected member of sort of the British aristocracy, and is used to getting his own way. And Sembeni grounds him. Sembeni is the person who speaks the truth when nobody else will. And in himself, he seems to have an incredible sort of ability for foresight and an appreciation for magic and for the sort of deeper, darker sides of an understanding of what makes people tick. He's quite sort of perceptive in that way, and he's fantastic with weapons as well. So vampires beware. I mean, it seems to be a thing. I tend to play these sort of warrior characters with great secrets. All my experiences playing sort of Shakespearean heroes and villains. That's probably where it all comes from.